This is early on Saturday morning now, and my microphone's not working, so I'm having to speak in quite a loud voice, but I don't want to wake my neighbours up at the same time. Right, on this particular subject, so we've done corporate plan, we're now going to look at mergers. I've already done the videos on culture and leadership, and finally we've got that slightly weird one. Is it a hunch or is it a scientific decision? And we're going to have a look at that one. And finally, the managing the change process, and in fact I've already done a video of that as well. So I'm getting through these quite quickly. We started Friday night, it's now Saturday morning, 4 o'clock. Okay, mergers, internal growth. Yeah, right, the actual big thing about a merger is a merger is a strategy, or a takeover is a strategy, and you will do that for various reasons. So, for example, when Kraft took over Cadbury, I think it cost them something like £11 billion. I think it was that amount. That is a large sum of money. I know RBS lost £20 billion on the RBS Ambro deal, but that was a sort of slightly weird 2008 scenario type picture. But they actually took them over. Now, why did they do that? And they did that because Cadbury's was big in the South American market, so that was like revenue synergy. But you're going to have to learn all of those terms. It was quite a complex takeover because Cadbury's was built, I think it was on Methodist roots, and it was very much based upon corporate social responsibility, and they were like having to forget those sorts of roots. But probably much more important than that was the cream egg was changed. Okay, when Kraft took over, they actually changed the cream egg, and this has really been a big scandal recently. Anyway, so merger strategy. Well, has it worked? Do mergers tend to work? Well, JLR Tata, we know that one to death. Yes, that has clearly worked. Cobra, that's called a joint venture, so it's not a merger. So Cobra still runs with its very own management team that it traditionally had. So then you probably haven't got that problem of the cultural change when they join together. And Volkswagen, Skoda, right? All of these have been incredibly successful in terms of what they've done. Skoda has gone big in Asia. JLR has obviously gone big in Asia. Cobra could become a top Indian beer. The Indians happen to like whiskey and real high quality spirits, so why not like a real high quality beer that was sort of based in a sense in India. I've got the bottle over here actually, I'll just go and get it. Right, so the Cobra beer, pretty cool bit of marketing, and I think that bit there, you can't see it on there, but on that bottle there is an Indian guy playing a bit of music, I guess, and this is the transporting the old loads, and this may be the old British Raj and the elephant. Okay, so it's got a really good history. The brand has a really good history, but at the same time, it is a quality beer. There's a really good quote in there. You know, what is branding? Branding is actually just telling the truth, and the Cobra beer happens to be a double premium beer. It's brewed twice. A refreshingly smooth premium beer. Okay, so it's quite a class act, that one. Okay, firms wish to grow for the following reasons. So you've got to learn all this. Firms, because they get increased power, increased status for the people who own the company. Large firms have more power over the market. They have economies of scale. They're able to raise large amounts of finance. Okay, so that's why firms want to grow, right? But actually, when they do grow, sometimes you can get synergy. Now, what is synergy? 2 + 2 is equal to 5 is one way of seeing it. So the sum is greater than the individual parts is another way of seeing it. Now, obviously, when Tata took over JLR, that was a great, we call that a revenue. That was a great revenue synergy because JLR could enter the Chinese market from there. Okay, so that's that bit on there. A bit more coffee. Cost synergy. Sorry, I'm playing to the camera a bit, aren't I, with that one? That was unnecessary. Right, cost synergy. Cost synergy got British Airways and Iberia. Now, these two companies joined together. This is a really good one in terms of culture. This was Willie Walsh, and when we do leadership, he had a really difficult job trying to change the culture of British Airways, because British Airways was a nationalised company, and they had a lot of very good for the workers, they had a lot of very good working practices. But then he had to try and change that around. He had to try and reduce the cost, because suddenly Ryanair came on board, and EasyJet, and they took a lot of their market. But obviously they've got more and more upmarket, but they decided to take over Iberia Airlines. Now, Willie Walsh primarily said this was to save money, and that they would save £300 million a year, so therefore it was a good good fit in terms of cost synergy, but actually it's also a pretty good fit in revenue synergy as well, because Iberia was also based in South America, so it was a way of building their brand. And now that company is called the International Air Group, I think it is, the IAG. Okay, it comes under that name. Now, this is in terms of the whole industry is actually making, I think in 2011, they were making losses of 3 billion, that's the whole industry. Now, if that is the case, that's obviously not the sort of marketplace that you want to get into. I mean, the amazing thing about that is Ryanair has come in with that cost minimisation strategy, and even though the whole industry is losing money, they're not losing money, and they're growing rapidly, because people are much more price sensitive, but we're going to have a look at that in a second or two. But sadly, when they did buy Iberia, which is a Spanish airline, right, that was in 2008, so they bought it in 2010 I think, but you know, there's a massive recession in terms of the Spanish economy. I don't know, I'm not exactly sure, I think it's GDP, its gross domestic product or its economic growth fell by 15 to 20%. I know they have 25% unemployment, so that's 1 in every 4. So they took a massive hit, so it also would have affected the airline obviously. So they're still losing money and it wasn't a great deal. But maybe he just brought it at the wrong time. Or perhaps he should have had a contingency plan when he brought it. You sort of get the idea how to bring in corporate plan to these sorts of essays as well. Santander, Abbey and Kraft, Santander and Abbey. That Santander, one of the world's leading banks now, they decided to buy the Abbey, which got them into the UK market, and they could reduce costs because they could adopt the Santander's IT systems, and they didn't need to duplicate management, so they could delay the organisation, they could get rid of hierarchies, and it was a cost-saving one, but also revenue synergy as well, because they're also entering the UK market. And I've just spoken about Kraft Cadbury, right? That was a takeover, and in this case, they wanted Cadbury because Cadbury were big in South America, and they had the cream egg, which has now changed actually as well. So they got some good, Cadbury had some good brands, hence Kraft was taken over. Virgin, I think you all understand Virgin, how did that grow? That grew by being a venture branded capital house. It's a really cool idea because they get firms to come in and then they present to Virgin, and once they presented to Virgin, they give them their ideas, and every firm is run independently, so if that firm dies, or if that firm dies, goes under, if that firm goes under, then what happens is it doesn't affect the other firms within that group. So they've grown in that way. Really clever way of growing. So it's a bit like a branded franchise in a way, but any ideas can join up, any ideas at all, as long as it fulfills their requirements, and the market must be growing, and that it's going to have a complete change for the customer, and it challenges the status quo of the market. And then we've got Starbucks over here, they've grown through this franchise system. In fact, they grew too quickly, and then they had to reduce in size because they lost focus on quality and everything else. So I'm just trying to think, as I'm saying that, I'm trying to think of the leader, which of course was Sulch. And if you want to watch on YouTube, there's some pretty good YouTube clips on Sulch and how he did it with Starbucks. And then we've also got this vertical integration as well. So you can get horizontal integration, which is when two firms like Morrisons and Safeways is a good example of that. Now, why would they have joined? They would have joined for cost synergy, right? Let's put this one out, it's just quite a good one to use. Morrison and Safeway, they would have joined for cost synergy, but also for revenue synergy, because Safeway was very big in the south of England and Morrison was very big in the north of England. So it was, once again, it was a good fit, and they could save on hierarchy as well. Sadly, in a sense, not that that merger has gone really badly, but they suffered hard times because obviously Aldi has come in on the scene with its cost minimisation strategy, and they've taken, what does Morrison's really stand for now? It's caught in that trap. It used to be one of the cheaper ones, but it's not as cheap as Aldi. Okay, so it's got to find its own niche in the market, but probably in all supermarket industries, profits are going to fall because that's the way it is, because there's much more competition, and that's what we want as consumers. So as consumers now, we're all better off because of Aldi, because it's reduced prices. I mean, Tesco's has reduced their prices. But you can also have vertical integration. So this is an example of horizontal integration. You can also have vertical integration. Vertical integration is like the oil companies, they get the oil out, they refine it, they produce it, and then they've got their own petrol stations that they sell to, e.g. BP. I've just put on Apple here, and just read this article yesterday, has Apple diversified? I would say the iWatch is, and according to TutorTU, that is also diversification, because they moved into the iWatch. They're hoping that's going to become the next big thing. People supposedly don't wear their watches anymore. I'm not wearing a watch this morning. That's my beautiful watch on there. I'm not wearing a watch this morning because everyone has the Apple iPhone. So they're trying to get a cultural shift that people go back again and use watches. And to me it seems really clever. I reckon it's going to be a great success. I'm sure it's going to be a great success. And I said this on the 12th of March or whatever. I'm sure it's going to be the watch is going to be a great success because, why not have it on your watch? I suppose one day you'll be able to speak into it, it'll be just like a telephone and everything else. Do mergers work? Well, this is the big subject that we're coming on to. The biggest reason why they don't work, hopefully you're going to get this, is because of culture in there. And so you've got to have cultural, you've got to have the right, you have different cultures within firms, so therefore there might be a culture issue. The biggest thing sometimes with firms is people issues. And then we've also got Daimler Chrysler. That didn't work because we had the methodical Germans. This is how they saw things, this is how things were done. And then on there we had Chrysler, the entrepreneurial culture from Chrysler. That didn't work at all, so eventually they split up again. This was the biggest disaster of all time. This was RBS, to try to become the biggest bank in the world. You had that sort of power culture, remember all those terms? Had that power culture, we've got to be the best, so Fred Goodwin, Fred the Shred. Okay, take them on, and we're going to dominate the whole world. And they bought Ambro, I think it was for 10 billion, and then and when they brought it, they made a lot of bad loans. Just before the 2008 recession, they had a lot of bad loans on their books. They got involved in the subprime mortgage market, so they lost 10 billion. So within that process, they quickly lost 20 billion pounds. This was a Dutch bank. So there we go. So there we're going to have mergers, and the next session then is to look at, what are we going to look at next? We're going to have a look at are mergers, is having a merger a good strategy to have? Something like that. So we're going to answer that question and we can look at that. And then I'm going to stick that onto the Apple iPad and then upload it this morning onto YouTube, which is a pretty amazing thing to be able to do.